Hello, preparations are well underway here at Homegrown Veg in the United Kingdom for the next growing season. These are some onion sets, as you can see. We'll have a closer look at those later. We've just had a really dry week, and that's allowed the soil to dry up significantly, and I've been able to work with that soil. But I've also managed to get one or two things away, both indoors and outdoors. And when I say outdoors, we're talking a cold greenhouse here, because it's still quite cool and we don't want to jump the gun and then spoil it by going too early, particularly if we get another cold snap before the growing season really gets underway. But hey, I've got to tell you, I am like a coiled spring. I'm like a coiled spring. My spring is completely coiled. I can't wait to get started. Might be a little bit rusty, but it's definitely coiled. Yeah, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. In fact, I'm so ready to go. What we're going to do... Wow, that tea is nice. I'm going to take these next door, give it a close-up, a little bit more talk on what I got, where I got these, and how I got these, and what I'm going to be doing with them. Then we'll look at some other stuff that I've got growing indoors. Then we'll go outdoors. We'll look at the raised beds. Not that there's much to see there, but it's important. You'll see why when you get a look at them, because this is the time for a preparation. This is the time where you lay out the groundwork so that you're going to have a good growing season. So we'll look at the raised beds. We'll look at some other things that I've got growing in bags around the garden, buckets around the garden. And then we'll go in the greenhouse and see what we've got growing in there. And bear in mind, what's in the greenhouse will all need to come out when it's time to put tomatoes in there. I'm just utilising the space now. And there is a little bit of space left in there on the path. Should we get a frost warning, then what I've got outdoors in bags, potatoes I'm thinking of in particular, I'll just quickly move those into the greenhouse to overnight in there to avoid the frost. Then I'll move them out the next day. Does that sound like a plan? Right, come on. This coiled spring is about to spring next door with these onion sets. Are you with me? Of course you are. These are my onion sets. As you can see, there's a mix of white and red skins. I think the red skins are red bottom, and the white skins, there are two varieties in there. The Stuttgarter Giant, I think, and maybe Stilron. I can't remember. I do remember when I got them at the shop, they were just in bags, and I put my hand in and pulled a slack handful out. That's them. Give you a closer look at. Now then, I've had these for about a month, and there's no signs of them wanting to spring into life, so to speak. I'd really like to see a couple of green shoots starting to appear before I plant these. But I'm not too worried, because I read an article over the weekend that said that here in the UK we shouldn't plant onion sets before the beginning of April. It's now nearly the end of March, by the way. The beginning of April, because they're more likely to bolt. They're more likely to run to seed. And that's the last thing I want to happen. So I'm not too bothered that there's no life in these guys yet. But I would be worried if in a couple of weeks' time I'm not seeing the green shoots of recovery on these onion sets. And bear in mind, when we go outside, I'm going to show you some shallots that I bought at the same time that I bought these onion sets. Okay. These are two of the varieties of tomato I've started this year. Before we talk about these two, I'll tell you about three other varieties I'm growing that I haven't got on camera. I'm growing Shirley, I'm growing Heinz 1350, and I'm growing Big Daddy. And they're coming on at about the same rate that these are coming on. Now this is a variety called Sun Gold. It's a small cherry tomato, and I've got to tell you, it's the nicest tasting tomato that I've ever tasted. I know everybody likes different things, but that would be my go-to tomato if you're looking for flavour. Sun Gold, a small cherry tomato. They ripen. When they ripen, they're actually orange and they do look gold. And this one is called Crimson Crush. Now I had a good return from Crimson Crush last year, and although I've never had blight, and fingers crossed I won't get blight, this is supposedly one of the most blight resistant tomatoes on the market. That's Crimson Crush. So if you're bothered with blight, if you're worried about blight, you might want to give these guys a go. I mean, I can't recommend them as being able to ward off blight because I've never had blight. But perhaps if you've had blight, you should give these a go. And then you can come back to us at the end of the growing season and say, yeah, these guys didn't suffer from blight, or don't believe all you read on the packet. Okay, not much to see here, but I'll show you them anyway. This is a courgette, or a zucchini, called Green Bush. Now I've never grown this particular variety before, and I intend growing these on in buckets or bags. I haven't made my mind up yet. But this is just to start them, and then we'll probably move them up into yogurt pots when they get bigger, and then we'll move them up into the bags or buckets when they get bigger still. And this is a cucumber called La Diva. Now we have grown those before, and yeah, they're a lovely small 6-inch cucumber. But if you've ever grown these before, these zucchinis, Green Bush, these courgettes, Green Bush, I'd really like to know what shape of plant do they make. Have they got a big sprawling habit, or are they compact, as the packet would suggest, grow in the shape of a bush? If you've grown them, come back to me, let me know. That's Green Bush, the courgette. These are some buckets of soil I've been getting ready. This soil's been through a garden riddle. All the lumps have been taken out. I haven't added any fertiliser yet. I've still got to do that. I'll do that later. I'm not too sure what's going in these buckets just yet. Carrots are probably the favourite. But it could be beetroot, it could be onions, it could be leeks, it could be anything really. So yeah, this soil's ready to go. We just need the temperature to pick up a bit. More buckets of soil ready to go. As you can see, this has also been through a garden riddle. There's no obstructions in there. This will be good for growing carrots in, and that's possibly what I'll grow in these some of these buckets. But we're ready to go. We just need the weather to pick up a little, and we're up and running again for another year here at Homegrown Veg in the United Kingdom. These are 3-gallon fabric bags. They're half filled with soil. This is the mix I'll be growing my tomatoes in the greenhouse. We're going to pop into the greenhouse in a minute and have a look at what's in there. It's too early to get the tomatoes away yet, but it's not too early to make preparations, is it? Nope. So we're making the preparations while we've got a dry week ahead of us, while the soil's workable, and then as the weeks roll by and the weather warms up, what's in the greenhouse now will come out. These bags will go in, and when the tomatoes are big enough, they'll go in these bags. These are my 3 raised beds. Before we look at them, I'll just point out that rhubarb growing in the corner of the garden. Can you see it? That's some rhubarb that's growing nicely. And in this bottom raised bed, right at the back, hope you can see it, there are 5 spring cabbages. And then the bed's empty, apart from those 5 spring cabbages. So that bed's ready to go. Let's have a look at the middle bed. This is the middle bed. As you can see, it's another empty bed. It's ready to go. Right on the back, in buckets, I've stood those garlic cloves that I planted. This is garlic that I grew myself last year, planted on last year, in the autumn of the year, and they're showing quite nicely now. Now, they stood up there because I can't stand them there, because there's nothing in the raised bed, but once that raised bed gets planted up, obviously they'll have to get moved. And this is my top raised bed, and again, nothing in it because it's still too cold, but we're ready. We've got plants growing on all over the place. Some might finish up in that raised bed, who knows. And to the top left hand corner, that's my courgette corner. Can you remember that? The zucchini zone. I grew 2 courgettes in that corner, 1 in a bucket, 1 in a bag. I had a real good result. I was pleased with that. And one thing that I've learned about that particular variety of courgette, they didn't take up a lot of room. I thought they would have taken up the whole of that space, because I've never really grown them seriously before. But they didn't. They were quite compact. So this year I'll probably have more courgettes stroke zucchinis growing in that corner. Right, let's pop over to the greenhouse, see what's going on over there. These are some fast start potatoes I've got going in these fabric bags. The one on the right is Mozart. There are 2 plants in there. And the one on the left is Maris Piper, and there are 2 plants in there. And those bags are 5-gallon bags. You can probably see into the base of the greenhouse from this shot, and you're thinking, there looks to be some more in there as well. Well, yeah, there is, and we're going in the greenhouse shortly. More fast start potatoes. The bag on the right has 3 potatoes growing in it, and they're Sylvana. And the bag on the left has 3 potatoes growing in it, and they're Rooster, and they're growing in 7-gallon bags. These are my strawberry plants growing on in these X 10-inch cut flower water buckets. There's 1 plant in each. I think this is the 2nd year I've had these strawberries now, so this is the first year they should really produce a significant amount of fruit. Last year they didn't produce a lot, but they were in the first year. This is the 2nd year, so we're looking for a good return from those strawberry plants this year. I may leave them behind the greenhouse, or I may move them out. I haven't quite made my mind up yet. These are some Ailsa Craig onions that I started from seed. I got them away really early. I got them away the beginning of autumn last year, I think. And they seem to be doing okay. Let's see if we can see what the roots look like without destroying this. There's a few roots in there, can you see those? So they'll go up probably into buckets, or maybe even finish up in my raised bed at some stage. These down here, these are broad beans in deep root trainers, and they're going out in the garden at some stage. And these are those fast start potatoes that I told you about. You've seen these before, I know you have. Let's have a look. In fact, I know you have, because quite a lot of you are actually growing these now. You're giving this a go. Hey, look at that. That's a potato plant, come on. That's a potato plant. Now they're ready to be moved up into buckets now, and that's something that might happen later this week. Okay, let's see if we can pan you around the greenhouse. This should be fun. Right, what we got in here? These buckets marked with a grey pebble. I've got home guard growing in those buckets. Now they were home guard seed potatoes that I purchased and gave them a fast start, and all of those potatoes were completely buried when I moved them up from the yogurt pots into these buckets. So those leaves have actually forced their way through the soil. Right, let's pan round again. Okay, we're on white pebbles now, and those potatoes are bambino. Can you remember those shop bought potatoes, bambino? They were actually, what were they, something like 51 pence, and I got 11 in a bag. They were turning green. I think they were described as wonky. Well, I got them all away in yogurt pots. I moved them up into these buckets, completely buried them, and there they are today. And I think that's possibly after about, I don't know, maybe a month of being buried. Look the size of them. I mean, they really have shot on. So that's bambino. We'll just pan round again. Okay, so the three going across the top of your picture, 1, 2, 3, absolutely no soil. And they're a potato called Courgette. They're a shop bought potato, and they were also buried. They were buried in that forest bark and wood chip mix. And the two right at the bottom of the screen, which I've just marked with those white shells, are a potato called Elvira. Now from memory, and I haven't got the information with me, but I think there might be an Italian early potato. I've never grown them before, and that's one of the reasons I'm growing them now, because I've never grown them before. I like to try things. Right, let's pop round again. Okay, so in the tree on the right, we've got an assortment of onions, shallots and leeks. We've got some musselbrew leeks grown from seed. We've got some Zeebrun gourmet shallots grown from seed. And we've got some Ailsa Craig onions grown from seed. They were brought on indoors. I've brought them out over this last couple of weeks and stood them in here, and they seem to be doing okay. Right, just peeping in the corner of the screen, we'll go around a bit further. Okay, you saw me plant those shallots in the bucket, 4 of them. 2 of them have got green shoots now, so they've kicked on. And if you try to dislodge the bulbs with slight pressure, you find that they've all put roots down, so they've all kicked on. And then in that little tray to the right of the bucket, there's some more shallots that I've put in that they'll probably go up into another bucket at some stage, but not just yet. Now right on the very end is a bucket that has a potato in it called, I'm going to have a look at that ticket, called Courgette. So we've got another Courgette in there, and if I just peel this soil back a little bit, you'll see the leaves breaking through. that's it. That's Courgette making an appearance. Okay, well I hope you've enjoyed this garden tour. I've enjoyed doing it. I've enjoyed showing you around the greenhouse and the preparations I've been making for the coming gardening year. And I hope you're doing the same. I hope you're getting your gardening act together, so to speak, and that you're ready to go for this new gardening year. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, give me a thumbs up and let me know what you're up to. This is Homegrown Veg, signing out.